You're listening to the Barbell Voodoo Podcast with your host, Jacob Fasig.
Hey, for all you Barbell Voodoo Podcast listeners, we have a special offer for you guys. If you go over to Instagram and start following Barbell Voodoo Podcast, I'll send you a code that you can get 20% off your next order at barbell-voodoo.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Paleo Works, locally owned meal prep kitchen with a passion for paleo. They want to make it easy for you to reach your nutritional goals and to stay on track. They offer heat and eat paleo meals, athlete recovery meals, and bulk macro items. Their meals feature 100% grass-fed beef and all-natural hormone and free-range chicken and pork. Pickup locations all over Middle Tennessee, as well as some delivery options for a small fee. Paleo Works wants to make the nutrition the easiest part of your day. This podcast is brought to you by NutriShop Franklin. After Turkey Day Transformation Challenge. Need motivation to drop those extra pounds packed on from Thanksgiving? Join our After Turkey Day Transformation Challenge. Classes will be split up by male and female. First place winner in each category will get $300 cash money. Second place will get a $100 gift card, and third place will get a $50 gift card. You get 1 point for every pound lost, 1 point for every pound of muscle gained, and 1 point for every percentage of body fat lost. It's gonna be awesome. Join in at the Franklin store, but if you're not in Franklin, you can go to Murfreesboro or their location in Knoxville and get free in-body and free samples anytime you want. And hey, don't forget about that unrivaled customer service.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Float Alchemy. Float Alchemy has modern, natural, and effective tools for fast recovery, more flexibility, and focus. We offer flotation therapy, cryotherapy, Normatec recovery, infrared saunas, and more in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. For Barbell Voodoo listeners, we are offering a one-time special price on our CrossFit Recovery Pack. Normally, that's $162. You get one 60-minute float, one whole-body cryo session, a 40-minute sweat in our infrared sauna, and 30 minutes of Normatec leg recovery system for only $100. Go to floatalchemy.com/barbellvoodoo to purchase your CrossFit Recovery Pack and use the code VOODOO at checkout to get $62 off the regular price. They also have Kombucha Tap Room. Try their painkiller. The kombucha is packed with anti-inflammatories, including fermented ginger, turmeric, and willow bark, as well as hemp CBD. It is the perfect recovery drink to hydrate and heal from the inside.
Also, this podcast is brought to you by Strength Outside the Box. Strength Outside the Box is a podcast hosted by Amy Hester and Lauren Coral, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. It is all about two girls getting to the heart of how a community of CrossFit athletes is changing each other's lives one WOD at a time, while digging deep to understand how the lessons learned within the gym can provide strength for obstacles outside the box. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to make two new gym besties as they chat with members of their own gym, neighboring gyms, and beyond. With each interview comes more laughter and a true sense of community, family, and what it means to have strength outside the box. Find them now wherever you listen to podcasts and on Instagram at Strength Outside the Box. The ladies are currently accepting suggestions for new boxes to visit and feature on their show. If you would like to nominate your awesome gym, email them at strengthoutsidethebox@gmail.com. Today's podcast is also brought to you by the Hot Room Yoga Studio, located in Cool Springs on Seabourn Lane. So you're strong, but how well do you move? Yoga at the Hot Room will help you recover quicker from those tough workouts and increase your range of motion so you can do better in the gym, bringing you pain relief and stress relief. You don't have to be gummy to get started. The knowledgeable instructors provide clear and concise instruction for beginners and are committed to helping you get the most out of each yoga class. Visit the website, thehotroomtn.com, and claim your 3 classes for $20 intro special. Don't let aches and pains slow you down. Get started today. And today's podcast is brought to you by Fight for Air Climb. Join us for the 6th annual Fight for Air Climb hosted by the American Lung Association on November 3rd, 2018. This vertical stair climb race will be held at the 505 in downtown Nashville and challenges participants to climb 45 stories. That's 862 steps to the top of the 505, which is the tallest residential building in the state of Tennessee. Registration is only $35, and there's a fundraising fee of $100 by Climb Day. Danny D Fitness is our official fitness sponsor, and we'll kick off the climb around 9 a.m. Sign up now before we fill up at www.climbnashville.org. 100% of the proceeds will go back into programs, research, and advocacy to help improve lung health and save lives. Want to participate in a more intense workout? There are only 12 spots left to participate in the pre-climb race called the Vertical Mile. This happens at 6:30 a.m. on November 3rd. To qualify to participate in this, please email abby.williams@lung.org. That's ABBY.WILLIAMS@LUNG.org. And today's podcast is brought to you by Danny D Fitness, owned and operated by Danny Dyer, based out of Franklin, Tennessee. She focuses on positive body image, effective workouts, and loving your journey to the healthier lifestyle. Come see Danny for one-on-one training, tandem or kids training, female small group training, group classes, pop-up events, and so much more. Visit DannyDFitness.com or find her on Instagram, Facebook at Danny D Fitness 1. That's Danny D Fitness and the number 1 for more info. As always, thanks again for tuning into this podcast. Please make sure you subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a comment, let us know you're out there and digging what we're doing. We are so thankful that you are listening and a part of what's going on here. As always, check out Barbell Voodoo, private label. We'd love to be a part of anything you have going on. In the meantime, enjoy the podcast.
Hey, this is Rich Froning. You're listening to the Barbell Voodoo podcast.
So welcome to another episode of the Barbell Voodoo podcast. We are currently sitting here at H-Dub in Nashville, Tennessee, CrossFit H-Dub, one of my favorite Nashville boxes, and we're out on the back veranda, which is a pretty classy word for porch. And we are sitting here with Donavan Degrie, and he is coming at us. He's usually in Hendersonville, and so I have him off his game here at a different box, and he's got a lovely wife named Abby, and he does quite a few really cool things. He's been an elite athlete for a while. I mean, I would still say you're an elite athlete.
Dabble.
Yeah, and he works out at CrossFit Hendersonville, and also works on the CrossFit Seminar Staff, and also builds homes. So I mean, basically, he is a Renaissance man. Does it all.
Yeah, jack of no trades. Just do a little bit of everything.
So welcome to the show, Donavan. We're glad that you're here. You've been on it before, full disclosure. Uh-huh. If you're like, I feel like there's another guy named Donavan that was on here before with Team Hendersonville. Mm-hmm. Well, not this last one, but last year. Mm-hmm. Or I guess 2 years ago now, because regionals is well past. But
yeah.
And so you may remember his voice. But I took my L1 under his tutelage and thought, man, he would be fantastic to have on a podcast, because I'd like to hear kind of how he got to where he is, but also kind of his story. And I was really interested in the way he taught. And so here he is on the show now. He agreed to take some time in the afternoon. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Well, let's start off. Tell us about how you began your CrossFit journey, how you kind of began in athletics and got involved in that, and kind of up to the point of being on the seminar staff. Yeah,
it actually starts pretty interesting. At first, I would say I hated CrossFit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
great.
So that's one way to start this podcast.
That's
but
right.
The reason I hated it is because I had a lot of pride. And so I grew up, playing sports, probably similar to most people. And so, I had a couple buddies who did CrossFit back in 2007 when I was in college. They introduced me to it, and I was terrible at it. And so being a prideful person, oh, yeah. Terrible.
So what does terrible mean?
Terrible means like, hey, man, we're going to do Helen. It's going to take me 25 minutes to do it.
Oh, gosh.
Because
okay.
I, walked more than I ran.
Uh-huh.
And I had buddies who they've been doing it for like 2 years at that point, so they're pretty good at it.
Right.
So I was just terrible. And so I dabbled. I probably did maybe about 6 to 8 workouts from like 2007 to like 2009, just trying it.
Yeah.
And every time I did one, I'd walk away and swear that I'd never do it again.
That's crazy, because you hear so many people that say, I tried something, it was difficult, and I was horrible at it, and it just made me mad and go back and hit it harder. You had the complete opposite.
Well, I also had a lot of pride.
Yeah.
Being a younger dude, you do something, and growing up, if things come naturally easy, and you face something that's really difficult, your natural tendency probably, if you have some pride, is to run away from that.
Yeah.
So that's probably where I found myself from 2007 to 2009.
So did you pick up things as a kid easy?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, what kind of things did you play? Like,
up until high school, I played baseball, played basketball, and then once I got to high school, I enjoyed working out, so I wasn't afraid of working out, and so I transitioned to wrestling and football. I loved the concept of working out. I just didn't know that the way that CrossFit did things, like it was hard for me to realize how unfit I was until it actually hit me.
Well, especially being a wrestler, I mean, you were probably pretty cut. I mean, you were not out of shape by any means doing that. It's just different kind of shape, maybe? Like,
yeah, and also my style of wrestling, like if you're a wrestler and listen to this, you're probably going to laugh at this, but you can probably relate to it, or somebody on your team can relate to this, which is if I didn't pin the guy in the first period, I was done.
Is that right?
Like it was just, there was no recovering at that point. Like I had this 2-minute window where, I was stronger, I was faster than most people, but after 2 minutes I was gassed. And you know what? I found the same thing in CrossFit. I was like, gosh, after 2 minutes I suck.
Yeah.
And so what I realized was there wasn't a lot of workouts that lasted less than 2 minutes. And so I just found myself sucking a lot.
Oh, you just had to dial them all into 2 minutes then.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny.
So free time was initially under 2 minutes then?
It was not. But I will tell you this. We'll get into this a little bit, but I remember talking to Rich at some point, and we'll bring up that name maybe. But I was like, man, I'm struggling with these workouts because I suck at anything longer than like 5 minutes. And I remember telling him that. And he goes, well, there's an easy solution to that. Just do all the workouts in under 5 minutes.
That's right.
Well, that works for one person. But what about the rest of us?
Simple, man.
Yeah. So
that's hilarious.
So 2007 to 2009, that's what it looked like. 2009, there's this guy, some people may know him, named Rich Froning. And so he was a guy that we went to the same high school, started going to the same college, and he...
Not going to do a shout out to your alma mater?
Yeah, that's right. Well, we don't really. I mean, TTU.
Tech?
Yeah, just the Golden Eagles. That's it.
Golden Eagles, baby.
Yeah, nothing special. And so, when I was in school, he was like, "Hey, man, you want to come try this CrossFit thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've done that before." So he put me through 3 bars.
I've been doing that for 2 years.
Yeah, well, dabbling for 2 years. Terrible. And so, he put me through 3 bars of death. Some people may know that as Linda. And it was a different response. I was like, "Hey, I think I'm ready to eat my pride and do this thing." And so, from that, it just kind of took off. That's
cool. Yeah. And so you kind of took to it at that point. Like, what was your training like? Was it 3 times a week, or did you go all in and you were like, I'm doing this any waking moment I can? Yeah. So in 2009, I think I really just started to realize how my view of fitness was very different than what CrossFit was saying. And at the end of the day, I realized that I probably wasn't very fit. And so I think in 2009, I finally had enough where I was like, okay, the problem's not CrossFit. The problem's probably me. And so I think I went all in at that point. And so it was probably, 1 workout a day for at least the first 6 months, regardless of what people think about Rich starting out doing 5 workouts a day. It wasn't that case. Oh. Yeah. So you, so how did you beat down the pride in your life? I mean, it was 2 years of hardcore, like kicking the pants pride that you were dealing with, and then all of a sudden you're like a light bulb, like turned on, and it was different. But like it had to be a little bit more of a struggle than that, or was it just that easy? It just the right person coaching you, or the right person doing it with you, or what was it? Some of that's probably just personal growth in my life. Like I know we've probably talked off air about this just a
had, but it's just when I was a freshman, I ended up becoming a believer. And so, like, really, I think for me, that was probably the start of it.
Yeah.
Where there was personal changes happening in my life. And then I realized at some point, like, gosh, you start to realize how prideful you are. And I think after 2 years of getting beat down by friends and family, and you start to realize, man, maybe the problem's me and not that thing or that person.
Yeah.
And so I think I just had a whole new perspective where I could embrace CrossFit instead of like pushing back on it and be like, oh, CrossFit just sucks.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah. So you changed internally.
Yeah.
Which in turn helped you change externally in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah. I'm glad I did.
Yeah. That's neat. Yeah. I mean, especially you're talking about Christianity, and there's probably a lot of belief systems out there. But at its core, Christianity at its best is, people who are selfless. And there's a lot of Christians who aren't that, but at its best, that's what it's supposed to be. And for you, it was a thing that transitioned you into a place of where pride became a decreasing inhibitor in your life, and that's a pretty neat thing.
Yeah, and I'll even take it a step further. Like you probably didn't know I was going to say this, but one of the sole reasons I came to be consistent in CrossFit. So I walked into CrossFit Mayhem, and they couldn't call it CrossFit Mayhem at the point because they couldn't afford an affiliate.
Yeah.
But the reason I walked in with a guy who led me to Christ. And so he'd been doing CrossFit. He was the guy that introduced me way back when. And we both went into Mayhem with the mindset of like, hey, we want to do this and be intentional and show our lives to people. And I think once we were there for like a couple of days, we both realized like, man, we enjoy this and we want to kind of do it with a ministry mindset. And so that was really where we got consistent with it.
Okay.
Yep.
So what does that look like? Because I know it can have a lot of connotations to people's lives. Like when people, kind of think about the Christians mounting up to go and do the thing, they see bullhorns and soapboxes and people screaming about how terrible other people are. Like what did that look like kind of in your mind? Because there's so many of us out there that would hear that and go, oh, what does that mean? Did they like, do you have to be a believer when they came in, or that you intentionally get non-believers so you could convert them once you got them in the box, like get them sweating and tired and then be like, and that's why you need Jesus. So I mean, like what was that kind of like more? Can you give me some more?
I think
insight?
It could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And what it looked like for us was we didn't even share our belief system until we knew that they knew we cared about them.
Oh,
and so what that looked like was, we would work out. We would listen to whatever they wanted to listen to. We would do whatever workout they wanted to do. And then we didn't say a single thing about Christianity or Jesus for 9 or 10 months.
Yeah.
And so really it was just more about, hey, let's build a relationship with these guys with the hopes of one day being able to give a testimony, being able to give a reason for the hope that we have. And so it was very intentional, but also at the same time, it was very much not about winning, so to say, a conversation or winning an argument. It was intentionally like, hey, we just want to love and care for these guys, and when given the right time, share truth to them. That's it.
Sure. Yeah. And it's different in that way. And this is by no means a religious podcast. I mean, you guys know that from anybody that's listened to 5 or more of these things. But at the same time, I think it's important to note what people who are doing things are not what the mainstream might depict them as sometimes. And I inferred at least as much as that you aren't like that. And so I did want you to say some more words around that, and I'm glad you did. Just the point of CrossFit in general, it's about relationships, and you step into a box, it's people that are sweating and giving it their all together day in and day out, and they have this community thing, which I've said plenty of times. I think they probably do community even better than the church does. And
I agree.
And so it's important because we share lives, because we create deep relationships with each other, and we're able to share intimate parts of each other's lives because of the relationship we have. It's not because we know something that somebody else doesn't, or it's not because, we've got it all figured out and so we can help you figure it out. It's like, this is what what worked for me, and this is why I am who I am, and maybe that helps. And, that's at the core of CrossFit, in my opinion, in my experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really neat thing, this last week we had a friend who lost a family member, in the first part before we even got started, was just talking with him and checking in with him and see how he was doing. And that's community, and that's that's faith coming out, that's love, that's genuine. There's no reason at 15 till 5 in the morning that you would want to have a conversation like that, but you care about each other, and so you do. And neat things happen when that happens, I think, and so that's really cool. So you and your mentor, basically, the guy that was kind of mentoring you at the time, and showing you CrossFit, decided to be intentional about the way that you were going to do this CrossFit thing. Yeah, and we both. What happened after that?
So we both went in and just kind of had this mindset. And I remember talking to my buddy. I had a couple guys that did CrossFit, and I remember telling them, I've got a friend, he's pretty good at CrossFit, and I'm speaking of Rich, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And this is, you guys got to remember, this is before he even got second place at the 2010 games.
Yeah, this is before the rope incident.
I mean, this is before the rope incident, before people even knew who Rich was.
Which they bring up all the time.
Oh,
on
all the
podcast.
time. Oh, yeah. And he hates it.
Yeah. That's probably why then.
But here's the thing is, so we're doing it, and I'm telling all my friends who do CrossFit that's kind of moved on, they've graduated college, whatever the case may be. And I got this friend, he's pretty good. Like, he beats the rest of us in the gym.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it's just like 8, 9 months later, he ends up going to the CrossFit Games and gets second. And I was like, I remember like texting and calling my friends, because I was like doing a mission trip somewhere, and they were texting me and be like, dude, that guy you're talking about, he's in first place. He ended up getting second place because of the rope. But they were like, man, you said he was good, but we didn't think he was that good. And I was like, yeah, dude, he beats the rest of us. And now you look at it.
Is that a reflection of how bad they thought you were, and so beating the rest of you wasn't a big deal, or is that a little trash talk behind the scenes?
Well, and I'm not gonna toot my own horn by any means, but you got to remember who was like some of the original people training, and so put this in perspective. We didn't know, we didn't know if we were good. If we were bad. Yeah. So I'll give you some perspective. Like, one of those guys was Rich. Another guy was Darren, who was a part of the team that got fourth this year. Yeah. And so all we knew was we're like, hey, man, we're slugging it out, trying to beat each other. Yeah. And lo and behold, these guys are just fit fools. And, just excited to be a part of that. But I was beating myself up every day because, Darren and I would go round for round, back and forth. And then now looking at it 10 years later, you're like, oh, what? I guess he was pretty good.
I guess he was all right.
Yeah, I guess we didn't suck as bad as we thought, because all we ever had in terms of a standard was Rich. Yeah. So the rest of us just felt awful about ourselves. But, you fast forward and you're like, okay, well, I guess it wasn't that bad. I guess we were kind of fit.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how that is. There's been several areas in my life where I've been a part of world-renowned groups of stuff, whether that's in music and some other things, and I was always like, I wasn't the best. I wasn't ever really the best. But then moving away from that, and as I've grown up, and I was like, oh, well, I mean, I wasn't even that good at X, Y, and Z, but I do it now, and people are like, wow, you're really good. And I'm like, I mean, there's guys that are really great, though.
Yeah,
It's hard to see past something that you experience like that, and you're just like, well, but I'm not that good, that's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
All right. So you're slugging it out with the best in the world. You're learning CrossFit. You're doing things. And then what happens in life? What goes on next?
Well, I'd probably say that I was training. Everything's great. Got a chance to hang out with a bunch of good guys. I studied civil engineering over at Tennessee Tech. So there's times where Rich wanted to train, and I was like, man, I got to study. And so then I'd probably say the next critical point in my life was, okay, been training for about 2 years at this point, been coaching CrossFit with Mayhem crew. And then
So what point did you get your L1 in there?
That's a great question. So 2010 is when I got my L1. So started really get consistent in 2009, got my L1 in 2010. So I used to, coach at Mayhem during
cool.
that time.
So you were a little around a year in, and you wanted to become a coach for that. That's neat.
Yeah. And actually, Rich kind of talks about this in his book. We decided to take a couple trips. I think one was to Lexington and another one's to Charlotte because he's trying to get on seminar staff at this point, and I'm trying to get my level 1. So we would take a couple of these trips together. Okay. And he talks about it in the book, but long story short, that was kind of an opportunity to share some stuff with him. But
that's neat.
That's when I got my level 1. He was trying to get on seminar staff, and I was trying to just coach.
So did he do it?
He ended up getting on seminar staff, yeah. So he got on seminar staff, let's see, maybe 2011 or something like that.
That's neat.
Yep.
All right, so you get your L1, you're coaching. Mm-hmm. So where's Abby? When does she enter into the story here?
Abby is later down.
We hadn't got to Abby yet.
Yeah, not there yet. So what happened was before that, go to graduate. You can imagine this. Your parents are like, "Hey, man, you got an engineering degree. Go try to conquer the world, make good money."
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I want to coach CrossFit. And better yet, what I want to do is instead of trying to go find a really good job, like I want to coach at the APC, which is the Athletic Performance Center up at Tennessee Tech, coach the athletes for $1,000 a month. Like, because that's my passion.
Right.
Oh yeah, I was rolling at it.
Yeah.
And you could imagine just absolutely crushing it at $1,000 a month. But for me, like,
and your parents were super stoked.
Oh yeah, it was one of the best decisions I ever could have made. And here's why. I realized during that time, sometimes you just got to follow your passion. And so when you're trying to tell your parents that, hey, I've got an engineering degree, or grandparents or whoever it is, but I'm going to go take a job that I'm passionate about for $1,000 a month, you really have to be passionate about it.
Yeah, you better.
And so I did that. Dude, it was one of the best jobs ever. Like, that's all awesome. We did was coach people for about, 2 hours a day, and then we worked out the rest of the time. And we got paid for it.
Yeah.
Which is great. What more could you want?
What more? So how long did that go on? How long did you do that?
We did that probably about a year and a half. I kind of did that. And then probably the next big transition is I did some like Army, National Guard stuff. So went to basic, did that stuff. And then once I got done with basic, I came back and I was thinking about going to grad school and getting an MBA. But instead I was like, you know what? I'm still passionate about CrossFit. So last minute, I was already, signed up for the MBA program. I was going to have it paid for by the military. And then last minute, I was like, well, let me go check out what's going on at my buddy's gym. He was over in CrossFit Hendersonville coaching. Okay. And so I kind of went over there, and the stars aligned, and the owner talked to me. And I wasn't even really looking for a job. But she was like, hey, would you be interested in come being a coach here? Yeah. And it was just a home run.
That's cool.
That was 2000 and, let me think about this for a minute, maybe 12. Okay. And did that 2012, and then did that for probably about 2 years, and then 2013 is probably the point where you're interested, which is where I got the opportunity to intern for Seminar Staff. Okay. So were you just coaching in Hendersonville, or? Yeah, for the most part, that was all I was doing was as a full-time coach. We kind of helped the gym grow a little bit. I think I could be wrong on these numbers, and so somebody else may want to confirm it. But we're not going to fact check. Not fact check, but I think we went from like an 18-month gap from about 150 members to about 275. Oh wow! And so it was really a great period where we try to be intentional about the gym, spending time, building relationships, and they really do run a good gym there. Like it's beautiful. Yeah. I was out there for Team Hendersonville before regionals this year, and I was just walking around, just looking around like a tourist. Like, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful gym. Ryan and Lindsay. Here's the thing: there's a lot of people who are in the community who are passionate about working out, and they're like, man, I want to open a gym, and then they find themselves running a box, and usually when you become a box owner, you have less and less time to work out. Right. But Ryan and Lynn's, like, they're just, like, business savvy people. And so when you get somebody who's passionate about something and also they're business savvy, like, it usually works out pretty well. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Roy, who is the owner of Barbell Voodoo, one of the owners. He was on a podcast. We just recorded one, just kind of catching up on the business and stuff, kind of telling Barbell Voodoo's story, because that hasn't been something that's necessarily been recorded by us, before. And I think it's fun and neat, and to hear Roy's heart is always good. But he was talking about how, in his experience, the worst thing you can do for your athleticism is become a coach.
For sure.
He's like, it's the worst, because the time you set aside to coach was the time you used to work out.
Yeah.
And now it throws everything off, because all your extra time is now coaching.
Yep.
So yeah, I could imagine taking it a step further and owning the box.
Yep.
And just being like, yeah, I think we're done for the day being here. I don't want to work out. I've coached every class. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough finding that balance. Like you really got to do a good job of separating your passion from a business and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And keeping those two clean cut. So
all right. So when does the love connection happen? I mean, come on, this is your story.
I'm building it up.
We're not there yet?
It's the best part, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
We're about to be
right.
there, though.
You just got me on the edge of my seat over here.
Yeah,
Can't wait to hear about it.
It's nothing crazy. People probably could have guessed it, but so we're leading up. CrossFit Hendersonville, coached there for a while. 2013, towards the end of it rolls around. I start interning for Seminar Staff, get the opportunity, and then so I intern. And
so
then,
how did you do that? How do you become an intern? Does somebody? I assume it's like Harry Potter, and an owl brings a note to you and says you've been chosen. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So I don't want, like, my situation was probably a little bit different. Seminar Staff is a very close knit group. Like they're very
cult.
Yeah, maybe a cult. Maybe CrossFit's cult. I don't know.
CrossFit's definitely a cult.
But it's a very tight knit group, man. And I think for me, I got my foot in the door in terms of being an intern, quote unquote, just through association with Rich.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to name drop, but if it wasn't for Rich, I definitely wouldn't have had the opportunity to intern.
Well, I mean, that happens everywhere else in business. I don't see why that would be weird for it to happen here.
But at the end of the day, it wasn't because I knew Rich that I got on Seminar Staff.
Yeah, you still got to earn it, but you may have gotten,
I got my foot in the door for sure.
Sure, yeah.
And so nowadays that process looks a little bit different. You got to go get your level 1, your level 2, your level 3.
Yeah.
And then you can apply to be an intern for Seminar Staff. So minimum's level 3 nowadays.
That's wild. Mm-hmm. All right. And so what was it like becoming Seminar Staff? Is there, like, you have to give some blood? Do you have to run through all the motions? You have to have a sub 2-minute Fran? Like, is there criteria in there? Like, what do you have to know about things?
So that's a really good question. I'll ask you a question back. How many people do you think's on Seminar Staff? The entire world.
Last I heard, 150 something.
Yeah, so you knew. So 150.
I listen to podcasts.
So there you go. So it's a very small group. So in light of that, really, I think it all phases off of Dave Castro and that whole Navy SEAL mindset, where at the end of the day, you just need to be a good human being.
Sure.
Like, you definitely need a coach. You need to do your job. Navy SEALs, they have a job to do. You want to make sure that they are all upholding the standard, which is a very high standard.
Yeah.
But more importantly, like, you want to make sure that you're spending your life with other people you actually enjoy being around.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's like, 50% like your ability to see and correct and make people better, and then 50% just being a good human being. And if you're a sucky person, but you're a good coach, you're probably not going to make it. On the flip side, if you're a really good person and a sucky coach, they'll probably take a step back and be like, man, can we get this person up to speed in a quick time and keep them around? Or is it just going to be like, man, it's too much of a learning curve right now and it's going to be a no?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So usually that process takes, anywhere from 3 to 6 seminars. So you'll show up on the weekends, just like the red shirts, and they'll evaluate you. You'll try to coach some of the groups. They'll give you some feedback. And I'm not giving away the keys to the kingdom, so to say.
Right.
And not just being like, hey, if you just do this, you're going to be on Seminar Staff. But a big part of it is your ability to receive feedback and actually make a change. And I can't tell you how many people that I've watched a flow master start to give an intern feedback, and their immediate response was an excuse.
Yeah.
And it's really not specific to CrossFit. It's kind of like, that's a national-wide, worldwide thing where people are like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I'm good to go. Like, you got the wrong dude. And so I think really the core of our system is trusting and respecting each other so much that it doesn't matter if you're a flow master or the new guy on seminar staff.
So what's a flow master? Isn't that an exhaust pipe system?
yeah, something like that.
Master?
You can put a flow master. I think you can put a flow master on an ATV, can't you?
Probably. I mean, I had one on my Firebird back in the day.
Oh yeah,
68 Firebird. It was sweet. Stupidest idea my parents could ever do. Give a 16-year-old a 68 Firebird, but that's a whole nother story.
I
had 2 of them. You can guess why.
Oh man,
First one kind of got.
Yeah, it got totaled.
Yep. Guess what happened to the second one?
Totaled.
Same thing.
Yeah. So Flowmaster, you put one of those things on a car, or what you could do is have a weekend where somebody's in charge for the entire weekend. So that's what we refer to as a Flowmaster. They just keep things flowing throughout the weekend.
Watching the time.
And it's not like they're better than everybody else around them. It's just like, at the end of the day, they're probably somebody who's been on seminar staff a long time.
Sure.
And we just kind of trust to say, hey, if something goes wrong, it's kind of like a team captain. Like, this person's going to step up to the plate and make the right call.
Right.
And so, on the flip side, it does have the team mindset where if a flow master goes down, meaning like they get sick or something, everybody's trained and equipped to step up to the plate.
That's cool. Yeah.
So that's old Navy mindset where it's like, man, if your captain gets shot, you better be ready to step up to the plate.
But everybody has a task for each weekend. You stay in your lane unless otherwise, needs to adapt.
That's correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Man, it's a good training program. Yeah. Really. Like, it's
I bet.
World class.
I mean, I know my experience was phenomenal. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I didn't like the test because I'm naturally scared about tests anyways. But that's a whole other bag of tricks we could get into with my psychology. But yeah, I loved it. I was eating it up, and then I realized I was like, oh, yeah, and I'm going to have to, like, really know this. Like, I spent months studying beforehand. Like, I hope they don't go back and look at my test. Like, oh, he barely made it or something. But I read through all the stuff. Man, I was underlining. I was taking notes. I have a whole notebook set aside. Like, I was really in it. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But it's so well done and so well orchestrated. And you can obviously tell the time and the energy put into it. It was so clean. I can only assume that there's like a script that you have to memorize because it was so clean, so defined, so well done, and yet each person was able to put themselves into it, which was neat. I appreciated that as someone who always has to work on being a public person, always talking in front of people, always communicating, and so I take notes while people are communicating because I'm like, they're really great at these things, and it was fantastic to see that happen and see each person's strengths, within that. I thought that was really cool. But it was so well done. So well done. Anyways, got off topic. Had a little emotional time there. It was great. So you're on seminar staff. You've interned a few times. They've called you into the show.
Yep.
Was there I figure somebody's in a bullpen, they pick up the phone to the pitching coach, which is down where the pitching area, and they're like, all right, we need a righty in for the take relief. And you got called and put in the show, right?
Something like that, except for, it's so funny because you work on seminar staff and part of working on seminar staff is you get the opportunity to work with people that you probably see on like the CrossFit games. Like a great example is maybe like Dave Castro. It's probably a notorious one where they're like, oh, so like you and Dave, you guys like shooting text messages back and forth, like. So Dave's one of my bosses, but it's not like we're, just shooting text messages back and forth. It's like Dave's like, hey, can you be at this seminar this date? And you're like, yes. And that's it. Like, just show up and do your job.
Basically best buds.
Oh, yeah. If you show up and it's kind of like one of those, like, no news is good news.
Right.
And so as long as you're showing up doing your job, it's all good. Now, I will say at the end of every seminar, we give each other feedback.
Yeah.
So really it's a well-oiled machine because everybody who's a part of the team takes it seriously. And they're really trying to redefine how we think of fitness and how fitness can be not just a fun thing that you do, but it can be a profession as well. And so really that's our aim and that's our goal. And so it's fun, man. We have a lot of fun on seminar staff.
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, you're a righty, go throw that fast pitch in there and then get out.
No doubt. But with that illustration, you're in the professional leagues. Like, it's not like there's this, they didn't call the Bad News Bears up into the game. Like, you guys have earned your place in it. Mm-hmm. And when your team comes together and each one of you plays your role, and it's such an incredible thing, It's fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I'll tell you that.
I bet. And it seemed like y'all had fun together, which was neat to see. And I don't know if it's like that all the time, but it was like genuinely you guys have fun together and you enjoy what you're doing and it's fun for you and it's still maybe a little challenging and all those things seemed apparent to me at least. Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
That's cool. So are there things that you have to do to continue to stay sharp as a part of seminar staff?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of those things is to be on seminar staff. I mentioned that you have to have a minimum of a level 3 to intern. Mm-hmm. Well, on the flip side, they made it a requirement probably about a year after I got on seminar staff that maybe a year or two that you had to have your level 3 to be on seminar staff.
Gotcha.
So there was this transition period where it's like, hey, if you don't pass this level 3, you're done.
So you didn't get grandfathered in?
Not really. It was definitely like a stressful moment for a lot of people.
I bet.
And so this is probably encouragement for some people hearing it who maybe have taken the level 3 and failed it. Mm-hmm. Join the crew. Like, I didn't personally fail it, but I'd probably say when they first released that test, it had like a stupid fail rate, like maybe like a 50% fail rate amongst the seminar staff.
Yeah.
And then they were like, okay, this is too hard.
Yeah.
We need to make this easier.
Clearly we had our expectations set
way too high. Way too high. So,
that's insane.
People are failing it. People are wondering if they've got a job, and so then they start to make this test easier and easier and easier. And even now when people
more realistic, not easier, probably.
Yeah,
right?
Not easier, more realistic. So now when people talk about level 3 and how daunting it is, I'm just like, well, you have no idea.
Yeah.
We were the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And so, but it was good. So part of that continue education is when you get your level 3, you have to do 50 continue education hours every 3 years.
Okay.
So I've went through this already one cycle, doing my second cycle now, which that will be 100 continue education hours into this fitness thing.
Wow.
So I'm taking,
and it's not your full-time deal.
It's not my full-time deal.
Yeah.
And so I've got to take classes. I got to take seminars. I, did my USAW weightlifting, like level
cool.
1
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so,
are you gonna do the Strong Fit one, by the way? That's a new one.
I haven't done it yet.
It's really cool stuff.
Is it? Have you been to it?
I got exposed to that a year and a half ago or so. The Strong Fit guy for the U.S., Chris, is down at CrossFit ACR in Panama City Beach. And so me and a couple of buddies were down there, and we went and worked out at that box. We took a little dude's weekend kind of thing. And Roy was like, you guys need to go to this box. Just go to this box. They do the strong thing. Don't worry about it. Just show up. And we were like, oh, okay. So we showed up and did, and we're like, this is the greatest. This is such cool stuff. And he his education level and the way he teaches was akin to the teaching that happens at level 1 almost. Mm-hmm. Like it's just kind of that level where he's wanting to educate and coach at the same time, and it was great. But anyways, I will mimic some of the things from my own garage, that he's taught. And he's like, I need to get up there. I posted something last night, and he commented, I need to get up there and show you how to use that stuff. And I was like, please do anytime. So. But I want to take that one for sure. I think that one looks neat.
And too, like, there's no secret to this. I think at the end of the day, we as a team, we as a team hold ourselves to the highest standard. Mm-hmm. And that's not like a brag. That's a if I show up on the weekend, I know that the person to my left and right has done their homework.
Yeah.
I know that they didn't just go jack around and just kind of like drink and have fun and then show up to seminar and be like, I hope it works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because and you're like, we're a team, Yeah. And we're like, and here's the thing is people don't realize this too, but we'll do things as a team. Like, for example, on a Saturday night, we might go out. That's fine. But we do it as a team. And at the end of the day, it's a team. It's not about any one individual.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, man, if we want to go out as a team and have fun, that's fine. But we better show up Sunday just absolutely giving it our best.
Yeah.
Because that's what the participants deserve.
That's great.
So just...
Yeah, and it's not the standard nowadays. Mm-mm. The standard is not do your best in all situations. You know, like it's something even at school, like my girls clearly get feedback differently at school, you know, with their peers.
Yeah.
Because at home, you know, I hold them to a standard. I say, you know, it's what did I ask you to do? Not what you did. What did I ask you to do? Repeat that back to me because that's what I need you to do. I need you to, you know, to operate at a certain point that you may not be used to in school and everything else. And so, you know, I appreciate that. It should be the way it is, you know. So and it's just not.
Yeah, I agree, and I couldn't agree more. And
I don't think it's bragging. Is my point though?
No, I think at the end of the thing, it's kind of crazy because, like, we can talk about this maybe a little bit, but you know, I transitioned at some point and starting working during the week full time, and it's interesting because when I just held myself to the same standard that I did on seminar staff and applied that to a typical job, I found crazy success.
Yeah.
Because most people, to your point exactly, don't hold themselves to that standard. And so it's just so intriguing that people don't get it. Like the light bulbs aren't going off of like, man, as long as you hold yourself to a standard, whatever that standard is, hopefully it's a good standard, you're going to find crazy success. Maybe not overnight, but eventually you will find success.
Yeah. And with that, it targets you. It focuses you. It helps you hone in on what you're doing so that you spend less time doing it. You're more strategic. You get things done in a timely manner to better than most people's standards are.
Yep.
All because of that same thing. You know, we have so many people nowadays that at the end of the week have worked their tail off but have nothing to show for it.
Yep.
Because their focus is all over the place. You know, and their exceptionalness is diminished because of it, and they go, but I worked so hard, and you go, yeah, but you were undisciplined and all over the place.
Yeah,
you know, and that comes with everything, and so, you know, it's clear when you see it nowadays. When you see a team that functions in that way, you go, oh, that's different. Like,
yeah,
that's the way it should be,
and that's the way that seminar staff is. It's like kind of, hey, you either keep up with the team or you're gonna get left.
Yeah.
And it's not like a bad thing.
No.
You know, it's not like, hey man, we don't like you or anything like that. It's just like, hey man, here's the standard. Yeah. You can either embrace it or you can choose that it's not for you.
Sure.
And so really seminar staff has like a 95% fail rate, which is intriguing because it's probably like, if you go back and look at the amount of people that went through like BUD/S and like went, you know, was a Navy and they're like, hey, I want to go through the SEAL program. I'm sure it has a similar fail rate, like very high 90s.
Yeah.
And the reason's very simple. It's not like, hey, you suck, get out of here. It's like, here's the standard, and we're not going to change the standard.
Right.
The standard is the standard. You can choose to keep up, or you're going to get left behind.
We're not adapting to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's most of the time when people come as an intern for seminar staff, that's the piece of feedback I give them is like, you better be a quick learner and realize, look to your left, look to your right, and be like, hey, how's everybody else coaching this? What's the standard? And then you better adapt that pretty quickly. If not, you're going to get left out.
Sure.
But if you can adapt quickly and you can push yourself really hard, you might find yourself wearing a red shirt one day.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I know it's got to be a lot of people's dreams to do that, you know, or hope and aspirations, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I would have no idea what those numbers are, but
I don't know either.
But I'm sure it is, you know. That's cool. And so you've had at the same time you're teaching, I don't know, it seems like every weekend. Maybe it's not, but maybe it is. And in the midst of that, you're an athlete in and of yourself. Like you're a great athlete. Strong, you know, nimble, all the things. So what was the deal? Like, what happened at some point when you were competing? Because you've been to regionals, you've had a taste of what everybody looks to as like, I want to, you know, if I could do that, like that's when you've arrived, and like just make it there, and like you've done it, and you know you could probably do it again, but you chose a different route. Why did you choose to not be the competitive athlete that just goes all out for that, to get the glory, I guess. I don't know.
So, and I'm not dogging any of my friends, but I think a lot of them would say that, hey, to be a competitive athlete nowadays is a very selfish lifestyle. It's funny, I was talking to, the Mayhem guys, and Darren's not competing this next year. He's got a kid on the way.
Yeah, priorities change. Matt Hewitt's got a job, and the job is kind of like, hey, you're not going to be able to compete anymore. Rich has got 3 kids, so how in the world he finds time to compete and still be at the top level that he is blows my mind. Right.
But at the end of the day, it's for me, this is what it looked like. I qualified for regionals 2011 as an individual. I was 1 spot out in 2013, and 1 spot meaning like 1 thruster on a workout put me out.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dang it, if I just did 1 more thruster on that last workout, I would have been at regionals. That was a tough pill to swallow. But I think in that moment, like, I really think I can pinpoint it to that, because I was also close to getting on seminar staff at that point. I realized, like, man, I have a choice here. Do I want to make this about me, or do I want to make this about others? And so right about that moment was, hey, who do I want to be remembered as? Do I want to be remembered as an athlete, or do I want to be remembered as helping people? And I much prefer being remembered as helping people.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think when life presents itself along the way, like, people choose different, because we all have, basically, life's broken down into seasons. You have seasons where, we're very individualized, we're very selfish, we're very, into ourselves, and that's what we can focus on. But then, life kind of changes, and seasons change, and then you change in and of itself. And it's neat that you would be so self-aware in that, so just aware of the magnitude of that decision to go, I feel like my life would be better served for me helping others than just being focused on myself. I mean, that's incredible.
And it's like the old airplane analogy. It's not like you're saying, hey, I'm going to put the oxygen mask on other people before I put it on myself. What it's saying is, hey, once I put the oxygen mask on myself, I'm going to take a step back and think, all right, who else can I put the oxygen mask on? Whereas I felt like where it got in terms of me training was I was training 3 or 4 hours a day. And it's like, hey, I'm going to put the oxygen mask on myself. And then when I start getting low on oxygen, I'm going to take somebody else's oxygen mask and then somebody else's. And then before you realize it, you're like, man, I'm doing 4 workouts a day. And really my sole purpose is how fit can I get, instead of how many people are seeing radical changes in their life. Wow. And so really it kind of was a wake-up call for me, where it's like, man, I'm really making this about myself.
That's
and
incredible.
I feel like at the heart of CrossFit, it's about the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to what you said earlier.
Yeah. And we make this point all the time, and a lot of people do. I mean, CrossFit does now more times than anybody, but that, CrossFit is not the 0.01%. It's all of us that are struggling to make good choices every day that ultimately involve ourselves in a community. And so that's a really neat thing, because you chose to be a part of the 99%, and to help that group of people become better at life, at all the things, instead of just focusing on you. And I think that's incredible.
It was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
Well, let me take that back. That was not the best decision I ever made. Going back to your love question.
There it is.
The best decision I ever made was marrying my wife, and eventually even going on dates with my wife. And so that kind of happened between that, right when I was going through internship and I'm figuring out, who do I want to be? Do I want to be an athlete? Do I want to be a coach?
Yeah.
And so she was along for the ride. We met at a CrossFit competition. So I knew you were probably going to ask that.
I was going to say, so were you coaching her? Was this one of those things in the coaching manual that's not supposed to happen? Is that?
Well, she was at a different gym.
There you go.
So I wasn't coaching her, but, I did meet her at a CrossFit competition. And, man, I was blown away. I was like, man, this girl is super hot.
Yeah.
And
look at that thruster. Is that what you're saying?
Thruster.
If I thrusted like that, I would have made that one extra one I needed.
Oh, yeah. And it was so funny because, we were both working out, and she was doing her, deal, and I was doing my deal, and I was checking her out, and then I get to the finals of this little local competition, and she's like cheering me on. I'm like, hey, there we go.
All right. That's all right. I'll take that.
And then her mom was like, stop cheering him on. You don't even know him. I was like, yeah, but I can get to know her. So made a little comment, and, did the whole like, hey, let's go on a date thing later on through social media. Who doesn't use social media? Yeah. And so we did that, and then went on a date, man, and she tagged along for the next competition, and we did that, and then before I knew it, man, we were dating. We were all in.
Look at that.
So
CrossFit
brought us together. It's almost like it's a really big part of what I do.
It really is. Yeah.
CrossFit got me a job. CrossFit showed me a passion. CrossFit brought me my wife. Like I have a lot of things to be thankful for.
Yeah, and gave you a work ethic, or helped, fire the work ethic that you probably already had involved, in you. But
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like
that's crazy, right?
It really is, and
this is just a fitness thing, man. It's not a big deal.
But this fitness program, and I'm using quotations right now, has radically changed my life. Yeah, for the better. I don't know what kind of human being I would have been if I, didn't eat my pride by doing a program that teaches you to be humble. Yeah. I don't know where I would be if I didn't meet my wife. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have an opportunity to coach and make it about other people, not about myself. I don't know where I would have been if I didn't have an opportunity to be on seminar staff. Yeah. And so, like, those things have radically changed my life, and for the better. Yeah. And, it's not just a fitness program.
No, it's not. No, I'm definitely living proof of that. I talk about it all the time. But, yeah, that's fantastic. Oh. I love that.
So then, and I hate to almost steer. I'm sure you had a direction that you wanted to head with everything, but after
clearly had a lot of notes.
Yeah. So after 90 weekends, so here's everybody.
Don't just gloss down. You said 90?
90. So this is the part where people are like, "Hey, seminar staff is fun. It's sexy. You wear a red shirt. You tell people push their knees out." And people lose their mind, and they're like,
the PVC pipe.
It's the greatest job in the world. And by all means, I'm not saying it's not the greatest job in the world, because I love my job on seminar staff. But what people don't see is, so I meet my wife, and after I started on seminar staff, I worked 90 weekends in 2 years. Whoa. And so,
out of 110...
No, not 110.
Right?
No, that's 104. 52. That's 104.
Oh, I'm really great at math.
Yeah.
So 104, you were gone 90 what?
90 weekends.
90.
Yeah, so you can imagine I didn't have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
After this.
Killing the nightlife.
Just crushing it. What are you doing on a Tuesday night?
Yeah, that's right.
Because I worked on the weekends. And I remember asking my buddies too, like that worked during the weekdays, friends that I had, CrossFit people. I would just ask them, like, what are you doing on a Tuesday night? And they're like, sleeping.
Yeah. Going to bed early.
I was like,
after eating my paleo meal.
Yeah. Hashtag, Hashtag speaking of, like, those Paleo Works meal, I know this is totally a plug, but they're amazing.
They really are. Yeah. I look forward to, and they're a sponsor of this podcast. But I look so forward to just showing up at competitions because I'll see them.
Oh, they're
just
amazing.
To hang out with them, just a little bit. Like, they're just amazing humans.
Dude, Brian and Lisa are probably the best human beings I've ever been around.
Yeah.
Like, they take such good care of people. And it's not even like, really... I'm sure, like, people posting some stuff about their meals, like, obviously there's maybe some incentive there, but on the flip side, what they do for people, and I'm not just talking about, like, giving them some meals. I'm talking about, like, food. Beyond food. They're just amazing human beings. And so, like, I'm a huge fan, and I have no shame in giving them a plug in this podcast because they are amazing human beings.
Yeah, they really are. And, you shouldn't feel bad about giving a plug. I barely get a plug for your alma mater in there.
I know. Forget the Golden Eagles. Like, really what I want to talk about is Brian and Lisa.
Let's talk about food real quick.
But, no, after, 90 weekends.
Sweet potato stuff this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
The sweet potato salad, have you had that?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so sweet potato salad. I tell you, man, their salads in general, The only thing, like, I love their salads. I do. But there's times, and I'm sure you've been here before as well. It's funny because somebody made a comment on one of my posts that I put of the pictures. They said that time when you think you ate a grape and it was an olive. You ever been that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. With that salad, like, it's so good. That chicken salad, man. You start eating and you're like, oh. You take a big bite and you're like, wait a minute. That was an olive. It wasn't a grape.
Nope. Yeah, it's so good.
Love those. So 90 weekends is what I was saying.
So long.
So much.
God.
And then my wife looks at me and she's like, hey, you're going to do this for the rest of your life. And so once again, there's one of those critical moments.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, there's probably not a right answer to this. But there is.
Do I look fat in this dress?
Yeah.
Same kind of panic?
Oh, I was freaking out. I was like, okay, let me put myself in her shoes. I was just gone for 90 weekends in 2 years. I need to be delicate here. And really, it was a wake-up call for me of like, hey, I really don't need to be putting all my chips in one basket. And also, if I do put all my chips in one basket, am I going to be working every weekend when I get married? Am I going to be working every weekend when I have kids? And so really it was another critical moment in my life.
Y'all were dating still at this point.
Oh, yeah, we were dating. And
wow,
probably
so
even,
you hadn't even locked her in yet.
We hadn't locked her in.
Oh, my gosh.
But I knew I wanted her.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I was convinced at that point.
But still, like, what kind of an amazing woman is that?
Yeah.
That would just be like, hey, I just want to check in, asking for a friend.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
We had 12 weekends together, and that's not counting holidays, so really that's probably...
Yeah. I mean, we would hang out during the weekday.
Yeah.
But it's not the same, like all of our friends and stuff.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, yeah, so I worked 90 weekends, 2 years, and then I was like, man, I got to figure something out. And that's kind of where I started transitioning, not only working on the weekends with seminar staff, but also starting to work during the weekday as well.
Gotcha.
And use that old engineering degree, dust it off a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, so get all the feathers off of it and figure it out. So
that's cool. So now you finally married that girl.
Finally married her.
Yeah.
Convinced her.
And when was that? 2016?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. May 21st.
According to the Facebook.
According to the Facebook. That is correct.
That's good.
It's Facebook approved.
It's Facebook approved. And so now you work full time. How many seminars do you do nowadays?
Yeah, so...
In addition to your full-time job?
Yeah, so in addition to my full-time job, I've probably averaged anywhere from, I'd probably say 28 to 32 average a year.
Yeah.
So it's not like I've stopped completely.
Right. No,
I'm
you're
still doing
quite a bit. Yeah.
I'd probably say on average like 2.5 a month. You know, like 1 month I'll do 2. You know, I'm an engineer by trade. So
fly in and do 1 day for you.
Yeah, I'll do one half day. No, I'll do like 1 month I'll probably do like 2 seminars.
Sure.
And the next month I'll do like 3 seminars, and then 1 month I'll do like 1 seminar, and the next month I'll do 4. And my wife's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
You know, and then I'll have to dial back down to another 2 seminars and get my life together. But it looks something like that.
Yeah, that's cool. And you still love it? You still enjoy it?
Love it, man. You know, at this point, it's kind of when I show up on the weekends. The reason I do the weekend job, it's not like I need it at this point.
Yeah.
I don't. But I really just enjoy people, and I enjoy hearing people's story.
Yeah.
And, like, even you, man, you had a great story where you lost a ton of weight. Like, how much weight did you lose?
Right now, sitting at, like, somewhere 125-ish.
125 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's stories like that, like, yeah, the movements stay the same. The lectures sometimes stay the same. They change a little bit. But overall, it's about people.
Yeah.
And as long as you make it about people, it's a fun job.
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, like, I do it for fun. I do it because it's a hobby, not necessarily a job.
Sure.
And I do it because, man, I enjoy showing up and making it about others.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason I do this. Like, people, I've started having people come over to the house and work out. People that feel super intimidated by showing up to a CrossFit box and stuff like that. But they're my neighbors, and I'm like, well, just come and, like, we'll work out together at night and have some fun. And they're like, oh, are you gonna, are you charging for this? And I'm like, no, like, I have a full-time job. Like, like, I do that, and I do this podcast because I enjoy it. Like, I like getting people's stories. I like walking alongside of people and being like, hey, and, this worked for me, and I really believe it'll work for you, and I think if you join that, and then maybe we can get you part of a community like locally, that'd be really cool, and you could come join my box would be great, and so I understand doing something because you're passionate about it and you enjoy hearing the stories. That's the whole reason this podcast is something that I've been able to stick with, because I get to sit across from people and hear their stories and go, that's so cool, and I get to learn things, and sometimes talk way too much and do all that all the time. But that's cool. That's really cool. Well, what's future wise? What's next in you? Now you sent me a link to some guy's Bible study type thing that you guys put out a few years back with some of those Cookville people.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
what was that about? Why'd you do that?
So the title of the book is Virtuosity.
I've heard that's a big deal in CrossFit.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. It's doing the common uncommonly well.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And so really the idea of this book is like, once again, we're not trying to make this like a religious pitch by any means, but really faith is a big part of probably who I am. It's probably a big part of who you are. I know it's a big part of who Rich is. And so I'm sure people aren't alone in that. And so what I wanted to do is to teach somebody who, maybe not teach, that's a bad word, is to give an opportunity for somebody who maybe necessarily wouldn't walk through a church door. Yeah. To say, hey, I'm passionate about CrossFit. I'm interested in these kind of faiths and principles. What's something that I can put in my hand that I'd be excited to read? The core of it is it's faith in CrossFit. Yeah. And really it's an 8-week devotional. It's designed, honestly, to be done with probably like people from your gym. Yeah. Like you don't have to be a believer to read this book. That's cool. It's just... Well,
I've heard so many gyms that do like Bible studies and stuff that have groups, especially because we're in the South. We have a lot of people in the South, and so churches like football to us, it kind of goes hand in hand with who we are in our DNA, although sometimes, most of the time, football does win out. But that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I've heard so many boxes do that. So it's neat that you actually have created a resource that people could actually use that would go hand in hand with it pretty seamlessly.
And that's all it is, man. At the end of the day, it's a resource. It's not something that, like I was looking to make money off of. It wasn't anything like that. It was published, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But at
with
the end
Lifeway,
with Lifeway, they're a decent sized company.
Yeah. Heard of them. They used to have a building downtown. Big one.
They demoed it and then got a new one.
That's right.
But
that was the coolest ever, though.
Yeah. It wasn't about like, hey, I want to build a platform. It wasn't anything like that. It's just like, honestly, God, how can I be faithful with the platform that you've given me? Yeah. And this is how I do it, man. And I think it's the same way that Rich views his platform. Sure. And so being able to put your thoughts into words and then give that to somebody else, I think is cool. It's something that I hope to give my kids one day. Yeah. Be like, hey, this is what your dad thinks and this is why.
That's cool.
And so.
Yeah. I like that. Well, what else is going on? Anything else new in the future?
Nothing too
going
crazy.
Down for real, as they say, the hip kids say.
That's right. Nothing too crazy, man. Just working 2 jobs, which is always crazy.
Do you enjoy your day job?
I do, man. So I do home building stuff, but probably more specifically, I'm a land developer for home builders. Okay. So I work for a home building company, which my owner is probably going to listen to this podcast. Yeah. So it's a great company, Parkside Builders.
Builders.
I'm going to give them a plug now.
You should, yeah.
But essentially, Brian's super cool. He works out with me at the gym.
Now this becomes a work meeting.
Oh, it's totally a work meeting. Yeah. So he, just lots of flexibility. And at the end of the day, I enjoy what I do because it's good people. I'm surrounded around good people, like Brian being one of those. And Brian was a guy that I met at the gym, and he's like, hey, man, you're working yourself ragged. Come be a part of my team. And so I'm thankful for that opportunity. So I enjoy my weekday job. And probably, long term, I'd probably say once we start having kids, I'm not going to be able to do the seminar staff thing forever. And so there's probably... You're
not going to pull like you did in college and be like, nah, I'm done with this building thing.
Yeah, no.
This the steady income is not what I'm into.
No, I think at the end of the day, people when I worked all those seminars and I was getting ready to say, hey, what should I do? My wife was asking me those questions. I knew I had to make a grown-up decision.
Yeah.
And the grown-up decision being like, okay, well, I got to do something that more than just passion.
Right.
And so I started establishing a career. And, once we start having kids, there's probably going to be a serious evaluation where it's like, hey, do I want to do this weekend stuff? And if not, man, I'll gladly take this red shirt off and hopefully give it to somebody else in the area, maybe hopefully the Nashville area, and be like, hey, carry the torch.
Well, I mean,
carry on.
It'll be a new season.
Yeah.
And within that season, you got to evaluate and figure out how that season is going to operate.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of seems like, the same kind of story that Rich did. When kids started showing up, he was like, they're more important to me.
Yeah.
And anytime he tells that to me today, I'm still like, that's why you are a good human, because you chose the greater path, to pour into something that's been entrusted to your care, especially in terms of kids, is great. You can't go wrong with that.
And don't get me wrong, I'm going to do it as long as I can.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because at the end of the day, it's fun, and I get paid for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only way I'm able to do it, once again, putting another plug in, is because I have an amazing wife.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
That's been clear in this podcast. I just want to be clear in saying she obviously, you once again outkicked your coverage as well.
Oh, for sure.
Some other guys I've talked to.
Yeah. I mean, she's just an amazing human being. Like, there's... You look at those things and you're like, okay, how does an individual work a full-time job, and not just full-time job? It's a pretty stressful job, especially given the Nashville area.
Yeah,
the building market's not slow by any means.
Golly, en fuego.
Yeah,
as my Spanish-speaking friends would say.
I mean, it is nuts.
Yeah,
and so and I've got a serious role during the weekday.
Yeah,
and so. And then you take that, and then you go, okay, well, he gets done with that, and then he goes travels to wherever, instructing, and then turns around and does it all again. An individual can't do that unless they have a really good support system. And so at the end of the day, my wife makes it so easy for me.
That's
where
awesome.
The only thing I do is, I work during the weekday, I work on the weekends, I go work out with my wife, and then we spend time together once I get done with that. And she cooks all the meals, cleans the house, takes care of everything. So I wouldn't be able to do any of this if it wasn't for her.
Yeah. So. Well, maybe I should have had her on instead.
You probably should have. It would have been a better interview for sure.
Well, that was great. Well, I really appreciate your time and, your willingness to share your story. I know when we were talking before this thing, I was talking about things I want to talk about, and you're like, yeah, I answer that every weekend when people ask me stuff. And I was like, oh, well, I was hoping to give you something new. But it's so neat. So many people look at the red shirts, and they're just like, oh, man, that's just... It's like something famous, like some greatness up there that you have to have. And you're like, yeah, I'm just a regular person who, did the work that was needed. And, and it's a great thing. Yeah, I love that. It's not magical or mystical or anything like thing. And I appreciate you shedding some light on that, because I can read it in a book and see the process and do all that. But to actually hear well, no, it involves who you are. They take that in consideration, who you are, how you communicate, how you talk with people, how you interact with people, and you got to know your stuff. That's a good deal, and it's very apparent with the ones that I've met. But I'm thankful for you and your time, and I appreciate it, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate being here, man. Hopefully I can come back soon.
Hey, thanks again for listening to the Barbell Voodoo podcast. Hey, if you don't mind on your way out, if you could go by Instagram and follow our page, Barbell Voodoo Podcast. It's brand new. It's part of the Barbell Voodoo family, and we would love for you to go follow us. You can also check me out at fitby40.blog. And otherwise, we'll see you next time.